The room went silent. Cameras rolled, flashes flickered, and the air grew thick with tension. It was one of those moments that people didn't just watch, they felt. Senator John Kennedy, calm as a preacher on Sunday morning, stood before the packed chamber. His eyes, steady and unshaken, locked with Senator Rand Paul's across the floor. What began as a heated debate on government oversight had turned personal, and in front of the nation, Rand Paul had just called Kennedy arrogant. For a brief second, the world seemed to stop. Even the reporters, notorious for their constant clicking and whispering, froze mid-note. Kennedy didn't flinch. He simply inhaled, looked around the chamber, and said one line that would echo far beyond the marble walls of the Capitol. "Senator, humility isn't thinking less of yourself, it's thinking of others more." The silence that followed was deafening. But to understand why that moment hit so hard, you have to know what led up to it, why Kennedy's words weren't just a rebuttal, but a reflection of everything he stood for. For weeks leading up to that debate, the Senate floor had become a battleground over one of the most divisive bills in recent memory, a reform package aimed at holding pharmaceutical giants accountable for price manipulation and fraud. Kennedy, a longtime advocate for middle-class Americans, had sponsored the bill. He'd spoken about it in town halls, on late-night shows, and even at church gatherings. To him, it wasn't just policy, it was personal. He'd grown up in a small Louisiana town, where people worked hard, prayed harder, and couldn't afford to get sick. He'd seen his own father skip medication to pay the family's bills. So when he spoke about corporate greed, it came from scars, not scripts. Rand Paul, on the other hand, believed Kennedy's bill was government overreach. In his view, it threatened free enterprise and set a dangerous precedent for regulation. He respected Kennedy's intellect but found his approach heavy-handed. And so, on that day, what began as a policy disagreement quickly escalated into a clash of ideals and egos. The debate started with data, facts, and figures, but as the hours passed, emotions began to seep through. Kennedy spoke of working families, of veterans who couldn't afford insulin, of mothers who rationed medicine for their children. His voice quivered not from anger, but from conviction. Rand Paul responded sharply, questioning the bill's feasibility and Kennedy's motives. "Senator," he said with a faint smirk, "sometimes your confidence sounds less like conviction and more like arrogance." The remark stung not just because of the word, but because Kennedy had spent his career trying to fight that very perception. He wasn't the loudest man in the room. He was the man who listened before he spoke, who believed that truth didn't need to shout. But that day, with cameras rolling and the nation watching, Kennedy chose to respond not with anger, but